she believes it's absolutely.
Welcome to Wisdom Academy, where our studies are not just intellectual exercise or spiritual entertainment. This is a manifesto I want to share with you, and I have it here on paper. I also made it available online. This is a manifesto coming here from lightchannel.dk on these studies programs that it's sharing not just my thoughts but the reason behind these studies. And I want to share this with you, and you can find it online as well if you wish. This is not just about filling a church pew or passing time with religious talk. What we do here is practical training for survival, both spiritual and physical, for the most critical time in Earth history. For those with oil in their lamps, the future is already clear, because a day is coming sooner than we think when no one will be able to buy or sell unless they have the mark of loyalty to a power opposed to God. There will be no last-minute cramming for the final exam. No one will be able to say, "I'll get ready when things get serious." The time to prepare is now. The period of probation, the window of mercy and preparation is open, but it is closing fast. We are living in the time of the end. The fast-fulfilling signs of the times declare that the coming of Christ is near at hand. The days on which we live are solemn and important. The Spirit of God is gradually but surely being withdrawn from earth. End quote. This is not a drill, friends. This is not theory. This is not for show. The choices we make today, the truth that we embrace, the character we form, these are the building blocks of our spiritual and physical DNA. When the crisis breaks, it will be too late to build a foundation. The time to build a house is now. And so here at Wisdom Academy, we recognize that preparation for the end of the times is not just spiritual, but also physical. We can help with, we can offer both material and also the facilities to train people for this time. Practical skills, survival strategies, a community of support, because an untrained soldier, it's already a dead soldier. We are here to make sure you are equipped, body and soul, to stand firm when the world's final test is going to come. We also believe it is vital to recognize the signs of the times. We have the rapid rise of central bank digital currencies, digital IDs, sweeping legislation to centralize control, unaccountable surveillance laws coming all over the world. The growing tide of moral lawlessness are not random events. These are clear signs speaking unmistakable language for those who understand the language or willing to learn the language. That the world is moving toward the very crisis foretold in prophecy. So ignoring these realities, whether out of fear, denial, or comfort, it will be fatal. So now is the time to wake up, friends, to prepare and to stand on the side of the truth, no matter the costs. And so, as we always open the Word together, let's do it with seriousness of soldiers in training. Missing the training, it's fatal. It will cost us life. Not spectators at a show, and so let's prepare, not just survive, but to stand unmoved, unbought, and unbowed when the world's final test comes. And so we have to ask ourselves, and that goes for today's studies or for any training session. What am I going to do when I can no longer buy or sell unless I compromise my faith, just as Revelation prophesied? What will I do when the pressure to give up my beliefs comes, not just from the world, but from friends, colleagues, maybe even my own family? When new laws demand conformity, total obedience, or else? When surveillance is everywhere and privacy is gone, will I stand firm or will I bend? And so when ownership is stripped away and I am called to trust God for my daily bread, physically and spiritually, will I trust Him or will I bend? When the voices around me are going to say louder and louder, peace, peace, don't worry, conspiracy, everything is going to be fine, am I going to listen to the voices that comforts me with illusions, or to those voices, few voices, that warns me with truth? Am I preparing now in this time of mercy, or am I waiting for a more convenient season that might never come? So welcome here to today's study at Wisdom Academy. Gaza and Ukraine portray the reality. Those most feared and hated assume contemporary leadership and further fallacy of reason and reality. How would you interpret the meaning of the UNO, that's United Nations Organization Charter, Magna Carta, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Humanity and civilization do not grow out of the moral mire of conquests, horrors of wars and occupation. Were the events of World War II not enough to redirect political agendas and priorities for human unity and peacemaking? We are human beings, born of physical and spiritual components. And life continues on this planet, floating by the will of God, certainly not by any man-made legislative procedures. The planet Earth embodies all the necessities to maintain and support life, and human beings are the chief creation of God, enriched with wisdom and ordained with a choice to be or not to be. A moral being different from other being animals, given the natural trust to live in harmony with a compound of universal settings. That's from the article, as you can see on the screen, from Dr. Mahbub Khawaja. Today's topic, quite intriguing, isn't it? And that's a quite intriguing question. I don't know if you can translate the image on the back here on the screen. You've seen it before. Who killed the moral compass? That's a question I like you to answer as we go through this study. And that was my prayer. So it doesn't matter where you come from, your background, your religion, your affiliation. We have to take a look at the world around today. And at least in my case, I can't help but turn the questions inward. It's human, it's a natural human to always do scapegoating. It's everybody else. But I rather, as I do it many times, would like to ask you to turn these questions inward, especially for those of us who call ourselves Christians. And it is my understanding, and I dare to hope that it's also your understanding, we have been entrusted with both knowledge and power. Called to be the salt of the earth, the light of the world, to hold up God's moral standards in time of darkness. And so the darkness is here, friends. And it's getting darker. We know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. We might not be able to see the light, but we have been entrusted with enough knowledge, evidence to have the faith to trust that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so one of the questions I'm going to ask, and again, this is electroculture, this is electroshock study. How did we who know the truth become so silent while wars are being waged around us? Killings, genocides, suppression, kidnapping, murders, violence. Lives are being destroyed. Do we really believe that we can walk away without accountability? And see, we are expecting accountability from amoral individuals around us. Why is that? With all our knowledge of scripture and prophecy, we have a tendency to let truth be buried under propaganda, being it from outside or from inside, and justice sacrificed for comfort or convenience. What does the world, what does the secular mind say about us when we, who should be the first to speak for peace and righteousness, have become cold, cynical, careless, or just cozy, while the world moral compass is shattered? And here comes, maybe I have a lot of statements, uncomfortable statements. How often do we, instead of searching our own hearts, cleaning our own house, point the finger at everyone else? That's the scapegoat syndrome. Oh, it's the Jesuits, the oligarchs, the elite, the government, World Economic Forum, United Nations, WHO, always someone else to blame for the evil in this world. And yes, I do agree. These powers, they do play their part. That's a fact. There is enough evidence. But what about us? What if instead of scapegoating, we as the body of Christ were truly united and stood against the tides of evil? As real soldiers, uncompromising, courageous, faithful. If those of us called to be watchmen on the walls have fallen asleep, who is going to sound the alarm? If those entrusted with the light have hidden the light under a basket, or under convenience, or under comfort, or under my little social club, what hope is there for a world stumbling in darkness? Introspective, uncomfortable question. Spiritual electroshocks. And so have we as Christians become so distracted, so disillusioned, or so comfortable that we no longer recognize the difference between good and evil, truth and lies, justice and injustice? Have we let our moral standards erode and becoming just surface believers, content with a form of godliness, but denying its power? And so this brings me to the heart of today's study. Freedom's funeral. If freedom is dying, and I have no doubt about it, and I trust it not because I wish, because the Bible says so. And I'm just looking at reality around me, and a lot of even secular people are waking up to this reality, but they don't know where to go. They don't have the answers. And so if freedom is dying in our world, could it be because those watchmen who are meant to guard the foundation blocks of morality have fallen asleep? And if so, what responsibility do I have, not just as a spectator, but as someone who believes that have been called to live by a higher standard, even when the church itself has grown cold? And so let's dig deeper. As always, I'm going to take a deeper dive and analyze these questions. And let's see if we can together discover what it really means to reclaim the moral compass. And that's not just for the world, but for ourselves, first of all, so we are stepping backwards. There is no use for us. That's my experience. I used to do and try to have prophecy seminars with people. But I've realized that we came to a point where actually nobody understood the language. And I understood that we are actually missing the fundamentals, and not just the biblical principles. We're missing the fundamentals. The understanding of freedom, that's a definition. And I'm sure if you come here in Scandinavia, and doesn't matter who you're going to ask, you're probably going to get a lot of definitions. And so before it's too late, I don't know if you saw the description to this today study. And you can go in online if you're following on YouTube, and I think it's also on Facebook and the other platforms. I like to point the fingers at myself first of all, but I like you to consider, even if I call myself a Christian, like I wrote in the description, even if I know everything, the words, the songs, the verses, and let me see if I can find it here on YouTube. It's there in the description. Yeah. I can argue doctrine, and I'm sure, and I've got a lot of friends here, we can argue probably forever who's the king of the north. I can debate prophecy. Maybe I can even come up with the right answers, and so on. What if somewhere along the way I stopped noticing the difference between good and evil? And so on. And you can read the description. I don't recall it exactly as I wrote it. And so what happens to a society and to a soul when we want the fruits of freedom, but we don't care about the tree of freedom? We want to live in a house of freedom. We want to live in a country where we have freedom, and people understand that democracy only brings freedom. But we don't want to build, we don't want to take care of that house. We don't even care about the fundamental blocks of the freedom, the house freedom. So if you also are tired of pretending, if you sense something is deeply wrong but aren't sure where to start, let's join me into this study and let's do some digging. Let's just shovel off the surface and let's confront, first of all, our own moral confusion and ask the final question: who killed the moral compass? And is there still time to find it again? Let's have a look at a short video clip.
She believes it's absolutely factual that if you're born a man, you can't ever be a woman. She says it's a matter of fact.
Well, biologically, she's correct.
Yeah.
But there are human beings here that feel that they are a woman. And I'm not saying that they're right or they're wrong. What I'm saying is, when you introduce this level of hate into a debate, rationality goes out of the window and it becomes just an adversarial argument. There is no right or wrong in this. And I don't think she's in any way contributed in a productive way to us getting to a point where we can have a responsible conversation around this.
That was part of a debate where J.K. Rowling, if you don't know her, she's the supposedly writer of Harry Potter's. Well, she has become quite notorious for the last few years, especially in England, United Kingdom, because of her statement that she doesn't believe that there are other genders than a man and a woman. And so this political leader in UK, Badenoch, I think it's her name, believes that if you're born a man, you can't ever be a woman. That's obviously contrary to her reality. And my point here is not to go into a debate about sexuality. We're going to cover that. I think I have some points. In this short video clip, if you want to have the link, I can give you the link to the full debate. Don't waste your time. we see a striking example of the very confusion and moral inversion which is marking our age today, and that doesn't go just for sexual inversion. The conversation, as you heard, begins with a simple objective statement. If you're born a man, you can't ever be a woman. That's a matter of fact. Yeah. This is not presented as an opinion, but as a biological reality. That, my friend, in my reality, it's an objective standard. Would you agree on that? Yet immediately the response shifts the ground. And this woman acknowledges that biologically she's correct, but then pivots away from objective truth, objective, to subjective feeling. And this is the shift many of us have missed today. And we are silent. And she said there are human beings here that feel they are women. Feel. And she refused to say whether these feelings are right or wrong, actually reframes the entire debate. She's actually claiming, and she's a political leader, and she's not the only one. I can go on for hours. I have so much evidence going through studies and so on, and articles and documentaries. This is hate speech today, and it has been legislated in many countries. If you're claiming in public there is only a man of a woman, this is hate speech, and that's what she's saying. When you introduce a level of hate into a debate, rationality goes out of the window. And so it's irrational and hateful today, in today's inverted reality, amoral society, to claim objective truth. Do you follow me? This is where we are today. There is no right and wrong in this, she's saying. Subjective. It's about feelings. Nothing really. And this is classic Orwellian doublethink. Where it comes from. The moment someone appeals to objective standards, biological, moral, or otherwise, we are being accused of introducing hate, and the very act of standing for truth is painted as irrational or even dangerous. That's what she's saying. And so, friends, the conversation today in society we live in, especially here in the West, is no longer about what is true or false, what is right and what is wrong, but about feelings and the avoidance of offense. And so we have the result today. It's obvious. It's all over the place. There is no right and wrong in this. Rationality, by her own admission, is discarded. You don't have to be rational. It's all about feelings. Whose feelings? Who's impacting? Who's manipulating those feelings? And so I believe that this is exactly the twisted logic we have to address, and we're going to address in this study. We have reached to a point at the end of this era where moral darkness is legislating that following objective moral standards is not just unpopular. It's not just because they're gonna kick you out of the social club or your church or your job. It's labeled irrational. It's labeled hateful. It's labeled oppressive. And so the moral compass is not just ignored, it's being actively dismantled and hammered and replaced with a compass that points nowhere. Oh, to the feelings. Those feelings where there is no right and wrong, and we just keep quiet. And so this is the world we're living in. A world where the very act of holding to objective truth is seen as the problem. And so we wonder that there will be legislation one day which are going to point the finger to that little hateful group that keeps God's law and obey His commandments. The mindset, it's already here, friends. This is the funeral of freedom as we knew it. And the death of the moral compass, where truth has been sacrificed on the altar of feelings, and anyone who stands for it is going to be condemned as a villain, a terrorist. So friends, what are we going to do about it? For those that we call ourselves Christians, and with the word Christian, a synonym, it's also follower of Christ. And we need to ask the question, what would I have said or done if I was sitting in that panel? What would you do? What would you say? Would I quietly go along, afraid to speak truth for fear of being labeled hateful or irrational? I've been there, friends. I've also been quiet, not anymore. And by the way, I was having a conversation here the other day, and it's not the first time. We have a doctor in our family, and he gave me actually a diagnosis, and actually had to write it down here. It's quite interesting. I have to translate it from Danish. He gave it to me in Danish. It's called unusually talkative without getting to the point. And yeah, he's here with me here in the studio. I hope I'm not there, friends, because I'm gonna get to the point, that's for sure. But yes, I do bring a lot of information. I don't give you headlines. I want you to take your own decisions based on the evidence which I'm presenting here. I'm just giving you, as always, the tools. Don't take my word and my opinion. And so going back to that conversation between these people, what would I do? Would I just blend in? Would I let the tide of confusion and moral relativism sweep over me? Would I be an Elijah on Mount Carmel, stand up alone, risking my life, and speak the truth, even if we're going to be the only one? And friends, we studied this before. We should know by now that according to the Bible, silence in the face of evil is not neutrality. We talked about it. It's compliance. I believe so, and I would not keep silent, so help me God. And in that context, we should understand Jesus' words when he said, "Whosoever is not with me is against me. Whosoever does not gather with me scatters." And so whosoever does not stand for truth, whosoever does not stand for moral fundamentals, blocks, it's against. We know the story about Elijah that stood alone against the prophets, the king, and the people. Not because it was popular or safe, but because it was right. So we need to ask, and I have to ask myself, and I invite you ask these questions as well. If I can get back here on the screen. Whoever is not with me, it's against me. And whoever does not gather with me scatters. And so if I were part of this panel, what would I do? Will I stand up? Do I stand up? Do we stand up when truth is on trial? Or will I just walk away? Am I willing to be counted as irrational by secular natural mindset? In a world where silence is compliance, what does my silence say about my allegiance? These are not just questions for a panel discussion. I would like them to be questions for every moment, and it doesn't matter which one of these blocks. We are called to stand for truth in a world that has lost its moral compass. Now, imagine you wake up one morning tomorrow, and you're going to find a tombstone where your liberty used to be. And this is it. Here lies freedom, my friends, starved to death by the very people who enjoyed it. This is where I see society today, especially here in Scandinavia. They want to enjoy freedom, people. Nobody cares about the fundamentals. Almost nobody. Do you feel the chill? And so people are not asking questions, and we need to ask these questions. Because we should understand what real freedom, do we value freedom, or we just assume that the government is going to give us the freedom? And by the way, who put liberty and freedom on our plate in the first place? Was it the government? Was it the king? Is it the Constitution? Well, actually, if you dare to believe in today's society that the creator of this universe invented freedom and placed it into our own very DNA. And so now when the axe is swinging at the root of the freedom tree, what would you do? Should we fight to save the tree? Or just enjoying eating the tree, the fruit of the tree on our sofa until the branches is gonna crash on my head? So we need to ask whether the chaos, the confusion, the corruption around us, because people are confused, they don't know where to go. They don't have the answers. Many secular people are waking up to the evil. They don't see any hope. They don't see any light. They're getting desperate. These are not random storms. This is according to that book, which I have in front of me. It's a predictable collapse of the Freedom House, whose foundation blocks have been kicked away. And so let's put some of these fundamental blocks into perspective. And let's do some checkpoints here. Let's see if we can find, because people, obviously, we seem to be so confused. Is that so? The Bible, it's very clear here. And we're not just here, we're not here to analyze the world out there. We're here, first of all, to hold up a mirror to our own heart and ask. And so let's use God's word. If we believe and if we understand our own identity. By the way, we had a conversation with a friend this last week, and if you're watching this program, I've been actually thinking a lot about our conversation, and this is also for you. We talked about the fact, for me it's a fact, that our identity comes only, our real identity, understanding of real identity comes from only understanding of who God is. And when we think about God's image, what happens to human rights when we erase God's image from our mind, from society? Have you heard the term useless eater? Do you know that digital ID is just going to make you a number? Take your pick. This is where we are today, friends. How do we understand, in the context of this study and what I'm talking about here, the truth will set you free? We kind of have a tendency to use it as some kind of religious term. But in the context of freedom, in the context of moral fundamentals, if and we have allowed the redefinition of truth. It's called irrational. It's called hateful today. What do you think will happen, and what do we see today happens when we redefine truth as personal preferences and feelings? Do you think that freedom is going to survive a lie? Do you think that freedom can build on a lie? And that's a question to my secular friends. Do you think that freedom and democracy can outlive no fundamentals, no building blocks, just feelings? And so everybody have their own feelings? And my questions goes on. The Bible is telling us that it is for freedom that Christ has set us free. It is for freedom. And so what kind of slavery is going to return when Christ is dismissed? What kind of slavery? We've already seen it. We already heard it. It's irrational and it's hateful to have freedom in Christ. That's, for me, kind of. And so, if the foundation are destroyed, this is where we are today. And my question is, if these foundations are being destroyed, the moral fundamentals, what can the righteous do? Are we standing on the wall trying to repair the cracks? Or friends, are we dancing on the rubbles with everybody else? Being afraid of being labeled hateful. Where there is no revelation, just feelings. People cast off restraints. And so the so-called modern culture, mistaken unrestrained desire, is that authentic liberty? We have to bring back the glasses. We have to bring back rationality, friends. Everyone, this is not new. It's nothing new under the sun. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. Isn't that tonight's newsfeed? It is. For me. I don't know about you. We have been warned, and this is a matter of scientific fact, not just moral, that salt that loses its saltiness, it's good for nothing. And Jesus goes further and say, you're going to be trampled. Are we ready? Are we there where we are just being trampled? conscience echoes God's law. My conscience, that voice talking to me in my head. I'm not being schizophrenic here. What happens when we keep hitting the snooze button on that inner alarm? What happens? If you're a Christian, you know who that voice is and what happens when we just snooze the button, the voice. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Woe. And so how many public policies? And the list is long, friends. And I don't see any point in just emphasizing and bringing a lot of information, because people around me, it's my experience, we don't speak the same language. We don't speak the moral language. We don't have the same fundamental blocks. So what's freedom anyway? How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation? If neglect can doom a soul, can it also doom a civilization? And so, yeah, you could say, yeah, this is very negative talk. And I'm sure there are a lot of other channels. It's only nice songs and, you know, but I'm here for the healing. Are you? I'm not here to be comforted in my own fallacies, my own misunderstandings, my own comfort, my own escape from reality. Have you ever wondered, and I was having this conversation, and I have this conversation frequently, and I'm talking to people across different religions and mindsets, and so I wish we could have these people, because they're thinking people, intelligent people. They're trying to find some guidance, and I'm trying to point them not to me but to the source. They don't understand why so much evil. Do you? They don't understand why politicians and governments here are acting totally opposite of what morality it should be. And so I pointed to a political person here, a lady. I pointed to, you need to take a biblical lens, because we need to go back to the fundamentals. Everything is so blurry today. There is a massive investment in propaganda today. Like I mentioned before, just even in Denmark, there are billions and billions of krona which the government are investing in propaganda. And people, the majority, are falling for it. Because there is another psychological dimension to why people are falling for propaganda. But this lady and some other people, I wrote to her, we need to bring back the biblical lens. And so I was thinking when I was doing this study, let's put a biblical lens on the definition of what is an amoral person. That's the opposite. And I want us to think very careful, and we're going to go some diagnostic steps. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone here. No worries. I'm in the healing process of a scapegoating syndrome. Anyway, did you know that the Bible word for amoral is lawlessness? Anomos. That's the Greek word. Lawlessness. You heard that before. Everyone who makes a practice of sinning also practices lawlessness. Sin, it's lawlessness. So I want to bring that definition here on the table from the very beginning. Being amoral, it's lawlessness. That's what the Bible is actually making it, I'm not making it up. So if you're in disagreement with me, so yeah, I appreciate that. I'm trying to read here comments on the back of the screen here. Amoral, for me, it's being actively evil. Oh, you would say, no. I know a lot of good people and they're loving people. I'm not making the definition, friend. You probably heard the saying, and I've said it before, the way to hell, it's paved with, remember? Good intentions, good deeds, so on. And so here, my friend, for you, if you're watching this program, we talked about, you asked a question. And I've been thinking, well, even if I call myself a Christian, it is the vacuum where good and evil blur. Because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. So I tried here, but I didn't want to make it too mathematic and complex. But it's kind of like if you think in mathematics, the more lawlessness, the more evil. It's increasing. And it's getting more and more blurry. And I don't take decisions based on my moral foundation. I take decision based on my feelings. And you can follow Maslow needs. He just described the natural man. This is it. One way or the other. And so if morality in a society, and as I wrote to this lady politician, is anchored in God's character. This is God's image, and when we talk about, we make it religious. Oh, we were created in God's image. What is God's image? It's God's character. If you don't know, God has 17 unique features. That's morality. Morality cannot stand by its own unless it's anchored in God's image, God's 17, maybe you know more. I found 17 in the Bible. If you want a list, I can give you the list. And so therefore, if I don't want to accept that God, I make my own God. I can still walk around with my Bible, but I don't believe in the same God, because the God I'm reading in the Bible is not just love, it's also righteousness, it's also unchangeable, it's also forever and ever, and so on. It's absolute. And so I'm starting to live this rootless existence. Rootless. Which means choices detached from any transcendent ought. In other words, I make choices based on my feelings, whatever makes me feel good, whatever seems right in my own eyes. I do it my way under disguise that I'm a Christian. And so the result is confusion, corruption, and captivity, spiritual and physical. This is the opposite, very summarized, of morality, and so on. And so I came up with this thinking, okay, let's do some diagnosis here. Where are we? And I just came up with 7 of them. I like number 7. It's a special number. Anyway, I know there are more, but we don't have time to go. I've just summarized here from a biblical lens. Let's just take this one here. We started with this as a comparison. Sexuality and identity. These are very important, not just topics, but moral foundations. And the enemy of soul, he knows very well that when he's going to attack either identity, if we don't have an identity, or sexuality, which was designed by God between a man and a woman, according to the Bible I'm reading, what's going to happen? And so we know that being amoral is not just, people think, some people, and I hear even Christians, people think that being amoral it's a neutral middle ground. It's kind of like thinking into zero gravity. And I know maybe some of you, I got some friends, they're flat earthers, so they try to explain away the gravity. Anyway, I'm not a flat earther, don't worry. This is like being an ethical zero gravity, where eventually everything is going to crash. That's my experience. When I was a boy, I tried to test the gravity, and I did crashed. I think the highest hit I took was like about 4 meters. Doesn't feel good. This is where we are. We think we can float in zero gravity morality. It's not possible. It's gonna crash. So this is the killer. We have a society today where a redefinition of marriage, promiscuity is being normalized, confusion over gender and identity, sexualization of children. And no wonder, friends, I was reading the other day here a mainstream newspaper in Denmark. Denmark has the highest number of pedophiles. I was like, what? Is this something we wonder? And so institutions on every single level, even church, has been pushing and promoting and propagating this killer. This is where we are today. And I know it's extreme, but we live in extreme times, friends. And where are we today as Christians? Why would the world listen to my prophecy seminar? Why would my secular neighbor, my Muslim coworker, listen to who the Antichrist is when I'm silent? Have you ever thought about this? To the present truth, to the present problems which is affecting the world today. And I'm not saying these studies are not important. In the very context, they are indeed important. Many believe today, and this is my understanding, we're living in this post-COVID era, this great awakening. You've probably noticed our logo on Lightchannel.dk here. Many believe that by just exposing evil, that's going to be enough to bring about change. Is it? But many of those people do not recognize that deeper erosion of moral foundation, especially in societies where Christianity's influence has faded and almost disappeared. And the biblical fundamentals, morals, which for many years, and I heard it even in my own denomination, that's religion. People doesn't want to talk about, I'm not religious. We don't talk about religion. That's what I heard. We don't talk about religion. I'm going to bring you a statement coming from an inspired pen, saying exactly how it is. That morality and religions are actually the same thing. So if you don't want to talk about religion, then you don't want to talk about morality. Because we are here today, everything that the Bible is telling us, it's undermined in key areas. Sexuality. And we're going to cover it a little bit more before I end this study here. These are some of the moral foundation. So do you agree on this? And let me point here, and I'm not accusing anyone here. I just heard about this. I haven't been there myself. I read the statement, and if you're from Scandinavia, you can make your own conclusion. But I just want to put this out here in the context of our study. Who are the compass killers? And we go here to Adventist Today, and we read this statement. This statement, it's a recent statement. It's coming out of Seventh-day Adventist congregation, the official statement, recently. The statement says that our church recognizes that all people are precious in God's eyes and that Jesus brings hope, freedom, and restoration. It further acknowledges that people practice sexuality in relationships. And here is the quote underlined in yellow from the statement. God has created all people as sexual beings. I'd like you to turn on your moral compass, friend. I want you to turn on your moral meter, gauge, whatever you want to call it, and mark if you can sense and measure. And I'll leave it up to you. We believe that a healthy sexuality is experienced and matures in a safe and equal relationship with another person in the framework of mutual commitment and faithfulness. And so the statement goes on to say that we affirm that all human beings are created with God-given needs at various intimate levels. I don't know if here they're thinking about Maslow hierarchical needs. That's not what I'm reading in the Bible. If you followed our last study here, you probably get some answers. As a congregation, we want to create a community where the individual can develop and find a healthy, holistic, and biblical understanding of sexuality and self. And we believe, and so while making the usual Adventist qualification is the article writing here, of marriage as an ideal in which the man and the woman live in a faithful, mutually committed, and self-sacrificing love, the statement adds, we believe that marriage should be seen as a blessing, not an imposed norm. We therefore want to create good and safe church communities where all people, including LGBTQ+ people, can mature and develop their sexuality. Now you read that right. Can mature and develop their sexuality and self-understanding. Communities in Christ where we support and help each other to discover what it means to be created in God's image as a whole person. Now, I sense here, and I'm not going to give you my opinion on this. This is double talk, but for me it's pretty clear. Let me see if I can get back to my slide here. Without a standard, transcendent standard, sexuality becomes a matter of preference leading to confusion, brokenness, and exploitation. This is what I'm reading in the article. I don't know about you. And let's go on. Sanctity of life. Human life is sacred, made in God's image. And again, we need to understand that when we step away from this very fundamental definition of human life, this is where we have today a society which is legislating abortion, euthanasia, useless eaters. This is what you are for amoral individuals. So next time you try to talk with these people and hope to get a moral answer, a moral decision, moral legislation, think again. Maybe if they're listening, let's bring back the fundamentals first of all. Because when life is not rooted in divine value, it becomes disposable, subject to evil calculations. And the list is long. I can bring on hours and hours of evidence here. And so truth and freedom. Truth can only be objective if you want freedom. And I do. And I truly hope you do too. And so when we accept relativism and we accept fake news to spread all over the place, and we know who's the main manufacturers of fake news. Those with billions investing in the medias. We know when censorship, we know when the fight is between my truth versus your truth. That's why we bring here the unity toolbox, my friends. If you followed our last study here, the drive-in church, and I'm going to bring it later. I thought to bring it back here today. I'm going to bring it often. You can't have freedom. Without truth is chaos. Only truth can set people free from lies and manipulation. Do you see the connection now? When Jesus said that only truth will make us free, only truth will make us free from lies and manipulation and sin and fall and deception and apostasy. I hope your moral meter went or read when we read the other article from Adventist Today. Mine did. And if it's non-calibrated, maybe you tell me, you help me to calibrate my moral meter. Can we tell people in one line, this is how it's supposed to be, and then in the next line we tell them, but you do it your way and we're going to support it. How does this work in real life? And of course, we love everybody. Of course, we accept everybody as they are, so did Jesus, but we're helping each other on the way to perfection of character. Education. We know that the moral fundamental says that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Not human concoction of education based on amoral thinking. So the definition for me here is pretty clear. Yes, I'm fundamental. Yes, people call me fanatic. I see colors, friends. I also see black and white, and I hope you too. Because if you no longer see black and white, you might be risking being in that gray zone, blurring zone, where confusion and chaos, and we don't know what's right and wrong anymore. And so education without a moral compass produces knowledge without wisdom, power without restraint. And so, my friends here, politician, whoever, wherever you are, this is where the world is at today. There are no moral restraints, so you cannot expect by just telling, hey, be nice. What is nice? Be friendly. What is friendly? Be loving. Be so. There are no restraints anymore. And so can we expect liberty and justice? Because the true liberty and the true justice are rooted in God's character. True justice. And so therefore, if justice and liberty are axed away from God's character, we will have and will live in injustice, oppression, abuse of power, freedom redefined as license to harm others. Just as an example here, I brought a lot of Christians supporting Israel today. I mean, conversation, debates. Doesn't matter. Israel has the right to defend, and so they can kill anyone and do everything they want. They have the right. That's freedom redefined. I have the right to defend myself, so I can do whatever I want. Injustice, oppression. Is that morality which is rooted in God's character? True liberty is not the absence of restraint, but the presence of righteousness and justice, which is rooted in God's character. As simple as that. And we should know what that means. And so therefore, if we expect legislation through the climate change to bring us freedom and peace and a nice world to live in, friends, think twice. Let's put our critical thinking brain, turn it on. If we really understood, if we really thought, and if we really explained to the world that we are only stewards on this planet. Oops. Sorry, wrong button. Not owners of creation. So I'm sorry, Mr. Bill Gates, you cannot just buy millions of acres and just cut down the trees and then give us lab-grown meat or vegetables or whatever you want to do. You're not the owner of creation. No matter how many billions you're paying to media and to organizations like WHO and so forth. This is the moral standard we go by as Christians. And so therefore you will see today there is a lot of exploitation of resources. It's all over the place. And hey, by the way, if you still live in Denmark, Greenland is still on the plate to be taken away from Denmark. Resources, food waste, unhealthy food systems. Everything comes from amoral chaos. We have the understanding that we are stewards of this creation. We take care of this creation. We understand our identity in God, in Christ. We know who God is. We know His character. We believe and trust and act and live as we are created in God's image. Then freedom is the result. Without this stewardship, creation is abused, harming, killing people and planet. Is that what we see today? I believe so. And the last one here, family and community. And why do you think one of the major attacks today is on family? Because if you destroy identity, you will destroy family. If you destroy sexuality, you will destroy identity and family. So this is a multifaceted attack, which is genius in a sense, because it's working on an amoral society, and it seems that even Christian denominations are embracing at least some of it. So I'm sorry to be so fanatic on this. I'm not trying to accuse anyone here. I'm not being judgmental. So I'm asking questions here. Am I wrong? Am I totally off track here? And so the last one here, I'm going to go shortly with you I made a list here. I was thinking, Bible, many people, yeah, it's religion, you know, a lot of doctrines. Some people say, oh, you got a lot of rules there. You can't do this and you can't do that. That's how some people view the Bible. Not me. I've learned to view the Bible. Yes, it's a set of rules. It's a fundamental rules, but I view them as actually my gate to freedom, to liberty. That's the truth I find in the Bible. And I've started for years ago to understand that, like I'm trying to expose here, these are the consequences if we don't want to follow. If we think we can live in zero gravity, think again. And so a person who redefines or ignores truth, and let's see, put the loop here and the microscope on us. Am I trying to redefine truth here? Am I ignoring truth? I hope not. If truth becomes flexible, personal, irrelevant, rather than absolute, this is where the society collapses. They did what was right in their own eyes, and we know what happened with the people of Israel. A person that justifies and excuses sin. How to spot? Am I rationalizing wrongdoing? Am I excusing it even if I know it's wrong? Do I call evil good and vice versa? Blurring moral lines for convenience or gain. You just have to turn on the mainstream media and the TVs. That's all over the place. That's why there is so much confusion here. This is the aim of propaganda, friends. You get something good, you get some moral, but you get mostly amoral. And so people, because they're not in love with the truth, they fall for it. And so you have democracy, you have freedom today, as people understand through propaganda. A person that lacks genuine repentance. That's a person who rarely admits fault or seeks forgiveness. That's an amoral person, showing no sorrow for sin or desire to change. Because if we claim to be without sin, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. A person that shows no fruit of the Spirit. And we should be able to distinguish those fruits, not in others, but in us. A person that is unmoved by injustice or suffering. If we have reached to a point where we feel nothing, we are indifferent to pain or needs of others, lacking compassion or mercy. Whoever shuts their ears to the cry of the poor will also cry out and not be answered. And so, friends, this is pretty serious. And so, of course, we will reach to the point where we will reject God's absolute authority. See, in my understanding, I don't know about you, is that if we accept God as our authority in our life, and God is absolute, we accept God's authority as an absolute guide in our life. See, God is not, I wouldn't say happy. God will not accept pick and choose. God will accept that we increase in understanding. That's another thing. But if I know the truth and I go by pick and choose, I don't like this about you, God. You're too fanatic. You're too righteous. I like you loving God, but don't expect me to, just follow everything. I wonder who said that. before me. If we prefer our own opinion or the world's standards, then we are the fool that said in his heart, there is no God, because I cannot paint and I cannot make my own gods. There is only one God, Jehovah, Yahweh, Elohim, and he's very well described in the Bible. 17 unique attributes. It's not me. And so that person might reach to the point where the conscience is seared. Have you ever experienced that? Hopefully not. Have you experienced someone else? I do. No longer feels convictions or guilt for wrongdoing. It's everybody else's fault. I'm all right. Their conscience has been seared as with a hot iron. That's pretty serious, right? And let me see if I can bring it back here. I missed. Here it is. Just so you know that I don't make my own standards here. And I'm just gonna read this short statement here. Morality cannot be separated from religion. Not all conservative tradition received from educated persons and from the writings of outstanding people of the past are safe guide for us in these last days. For the great struggle before us is such as the world has never seen. And so true moral and intellectual power originates with God. Going back here to my study. Oops. Sorry about this. It's coming back. Let me wrap up this study. Well, as we see around, what is the solution? The casket is already on the shoulders and the head of moral apathy, moral amnesia, moral arrogance. And so while the mourners chant progress, technology is shoveling dirt on the very freedom they claim to love. And so which side are we on? Heaven is asking us every single day, while the door is still open, who will stand in the gap? You know this question. That article I just showed you before, I can send you the link. It's from a devotional called Christ Triumphant. All will take sides. Who do not come out boldly for Christ are numbered with his enemies. What does it mean to come out boldly? Neutrality is treason. Silence is consent. Delaying is denial. Today is the day. Do I bend truth to fit comfort? Or does truth bend me into conformity with Christ? Which one? Do I filter sin? When culture rebrands sin, do I echo the perversion or expose the lie? That's a filter. Do I use this repentance gauge? Do I use this fruit audit each and every single day? Do I use these compassion pulse? Do I take my pulse on compassion? Or have I grown numb to the cries of the poor, the unborn, the trafficked? Because my feelings is more important. Because my comfort, my sexuality has to be accepted by everyone? When was the last time I used the authority barometer? Is it God's commands that overrule my feelings, my preferences, publicly and privately? That's a question, friends, for personal diagnosis. And so, how is my conscience meter doing? What is it telling me? Can I still hear, feel, sense the Spirit sting when I cross a line? Or has my heart become fireproofed? No reaction. This is where I'm at. We need to score ourselves honestly. Any soft spots mark the places where we maybe have borrowed morality, but we're running out. And so the call, choose you this day whom you will serve, it's actually a soldier call. Did you know that? It's not an intellectual call, it's not a religious call, it's a soldier call. Did you know that? And so, these are my marching orders. I don't know about you. Plant the flag. Do it publicly. Online, at work, with friends. Leave the difference. Speak the truth. Speak truth to power. Pray, talk, write, protest. Legislate from a Bible-shaped conscience if you're in a position to bring about legislation. Not just party talking points. Rebuild the ruins. Start or join. There are many ways to do it. Serve. Defend the vulnerable. Be a repair of the breach. Intercede like Caleb. Did you know that God said, because he was of another spirit? What spirit? Caleb and another one, and Joshua, were the only two people that actually were allowed to enter. He was of another spirit. He knew his marching orders. Do you? And so, because we've already entered and we are still allowed to prepare and we still have some freedom left, let's use it. Let's prepare because the costs are going to be eternal. We have to count the costs. We have to remember the promise, blessed are those persecuted for righteousness. And so together, let's hold the line, soldiers. We have to stand fast in faith, be brave, be strong. Partnership may be able to prevent retreat. Partnership with God and partnership with each other in truth. Because only truth will unite us. And so, if we will not be salt that preserves, we will be the salt that's going to be trampled. If we refuse to carry the cross today, we will also be the bearer of the coffin tomorrow. So, soldiers, friends, we need to stand now or keep silent forever. Heaven is taking roll. Thank you, and God bless.